I say it is 11:02, we're going to go ahead and get started. So welcome to the May 2025 Missouri Evergreen Monthly Cataloging Meeting. We have kind of a shortish agenda today, so I don't think it'll take a whole hour. But I'm going to let Kate start, and she's going to talk about the changes that have been made to the MEC election process for officers and people on the executive board.
I just thought that we would share with everybody that the executive board is changing the way that they're doing elections this year, which is kind of exciting. We're going to do a online vote where everybody will have 2 weeks to vote. Well, everybody is kind of a misnomer because each library gets one vote. So most likely it's going to be your director that votes. But nominees will be announced at the membership meeting that is first week of June. I think that's when it is. But I don't know. I just think that's kind of cool that we have, and in case you didn't know, the library board, not the library board, the consortium board, they just expanded. So we have 3 new seats. So we went from a board of 9 to a board of 12. So there are 3 seats open, but there are also 2 open for to be filled. 2 people are cycling off. So anybody can be nominated. You do not have to be a library director to be on the board. I am about to be board president, and I am not a library director. So I love for people to be interested in our consortium and participating in it. So I just wanted to be sure that you all knew that there were changes and that they are exciting changes.
So guys, keep, if you have opinions about when these things come out, make sure you're telling your library director. So they are taking into account everybody, what everybody thinks. And so with this many people, like the board expanding and new people coming in or off, there will actually be like a pretty big change this time around. So with new people coming on, so pay attention to that. That'll, be happening in June, July, whatever. So we are going to move on. So consortium cataloger news, that's always weird since I'm the person leading this meeting. But we have one regional training left. It is actually this coming Friday, May 16th. It is at West Plains. There is still obviously time to register. You can register up until the day before. So if you would like to join us in West Plains, please do so. And otherwise, we will see you next year for regional trainings again. But this will be the last one this year. Just a reminder, we don't record these. We are trying to force participation in these, so maybe you come see us so we can talk in person and see your face. So I'm sorry about that, but we don't do that. Also, it's kind of logistically a nightmare to do that, as we've all heard Steve talk about when he does the MEC users conference. It's not easy. It seems easy, it's not easy. So sign up if you want to see us Friday. Otherwise, we will see you in 2026.
Hey, Liz.
Moving around. Yeah.
We're still not seeing the agenda, if that's what you're trying to share.
Yeah. What are you seeing?
Bob Ross
you're seeing
still.
Bob Ross.
Yeah.
What is happening? Okay, let's try again.
It's a very calming background, though. Oh,
yes.
Well.
Okay, well, sorry, I killed it now. Now, I screwed up my windows because I have multiple screens. So also it's Monday, so we'll take what we can. Although no one was complaining about Bob Ross, so it was like happy trees, guys. Certification by the number. So as always, I kind of just keep you guys updated on what's happening there. So as people get certified and recertified, so certification obviously is people getting certified for the first time. So we're at, since the ODU training stuff has been made, we have had 74 basic, 41 advanced, and then recertification, we've had 15 basic and 59 advanced. So that can tell you how catalogers fluctuate in between libraries at ME with people getting recertified versus certified. So, so moving right along.
I have something to say about that, Liz.
Okay.
As we get closer to the permissions project actually coming to fruition and the cataloging permissions actually being put in place, I expect that to be done within the next, I'm going to say 3 months. I mean, fingers crossed. I don't know.
Make it
Ma-
happen.
that- yeah. But something to keep in mind, if your staff at your library, if you have circulation people that add items to the catalog, which is donations or just any added copy, they do need to have basic cataloging training. They need to be certified in basic, using the basic certification class. That might not be popular, but them's the
Them's
rules.
the rules. Whoa, okay, that was hive mind. Yeah, so as the permissions project like becomes like a reality and we actually get this going, that means I will be going in and like marking who actually should not be having these permissions and turning people off. Okay, so that means if people are using these and they aren't certified, like your permissions are going to be gone and you just won't be able to do stuff. So keep that in mind. Especially it doesn't matter if it's circulation people, it could be anybody. If you
Right.
are not keeping track or up to date with your recertification, I try to remind everybody, but the list is vast. The list is vast, and so are my responsibilities, guys. So it could be happening. So just keep an eye out for that. And if you have questions of when you were supposed to get recertified or whatever, ask me. I do have a list. I have a master list, and I can look at it for you. Okay, so just know that we don't usually like to turn things off, but in this case with the permissions project, we absolutely will be. Otherwise, what was the point in the first place? So, okay. So Cataloging Connect today it's basically a bunch of bugs. We talked last week about all the bugs of the enhanced editor, and they did put a patch out when they did the update, the monthly update, and it did fix some things. Okay, we're going to caveat that. It fixed some things. The enhanced editor, I don't consider it a nightmare anymore. I just consider it maybe vaguely annoying, if that tells you the updates were pretty good. But that doesn't mean that they fixed everything in one go. Fixing one thing can break something else. You know how it goes with anything computer-wise. So these are the bugs we wanted to highlight. They may sound vaguely the same. They're not necessarily the same. Okay. So if I'm not even going to click into all these, I have linked them out. Actually, I'll click into the first one to show you guys how to add heat. So if you are on a bug, and please sign up for this, even if it's just to add heat, even if you never intend to like create a bug and put a report in, adding heat is what we want you guys to do. And basically when you go in here, you would just go to this little thing right here. I think, is that a pencil? I think it's a pencil. You click on the pencil and you just say, yes, it affects me. I've already said that, so it doesn't count mine, but that's all you do. When we say add heat, that is what we want. Okay, so easy peasy, but you do have to have an account to do that. And I've personally never like submitted a bug except to, the help desk, and then they've made it. So I get it if you don't intend on doing that, but please have an account just to add heat, because that's what this whole section is about. Okay, so this first one here is about how sometimes it depends on what field it is, when you're in the enhanced editor in the fixed fields and you are making changes in the fixed fields, some of them reset after you push save. So say you change the audience or something and you go and push the save button and it is automatically putting in the old value like you hadn't done anything. Why? Who knows? It's one of those things. Please go in and add heat to that because obviously it's very annoying. The second one is similar, not the same. It's talking about these are fixed fields with the combo boxes. So a combo box is an audience, you only have one audience. A combo box would be more like the illustrations one where you could have A and B, where you could have illustrations and maps. That's a combo box. You can have multiple things in there. But this is the same error in that you are editing the combo box, and then it is not saving your changes once you push save. They are reverting back. So these are similar, but not the same bug. So please add heat to that one as well. The third one here, these are field tags and indicators and subfield tags not saving consistently when editing. Sometimes they do, randomly they will not. I wish I could tell you why randomly these things happen. I cannot. And then the last one was actually one that Sarah Llewellyn found. I don't know if she's on the call and wants to talk about this, But she messaged me last week and is like, hey, I'm trying to run a report in Simple Reporter, and it's like, it's not eating the report, but it's like taking the template and shoving it in a different folder wherein she didn't save it. So confusing. So she submitted a help desk ticket, and help was actually like, oh, okay, this is a known bug. So if this is happening to you, because it's not happening consistently, it wasn't happening to me when I tried, but poor Sarah had this issue. So if this affects you, please go in and add heat to it so that we know it can be fixed, and hopefully it'll get higher on the list, and maybe, in the next couple months we can get a patch for it and figure it out.
Unfortunately,
Anybody?
these bugs just mean that we have to check our work before we save and move on.
Yeah.
which is a good practice to be in, honestly. But yeah, this is annoying. It's real annoying.
Yeah. The ones that specifically like go back after you push save, like I push save and then I, generally go about my business. And the fact that I can't just go about my business is really annoying, because now I have to like quadruple check, because I'm the person, guys, who unplugs my straightener every morning, and I know I've unplugged it, but I have to check it 15 times. So this is another instance where I can't trust myself. So I have to go back and look. And so it's one of those things that is definitely annoying. But again, when they put the patch out, so many of the things in the fix field editor got fixed, but it just, not everything. So anybody have any questions about the bugs that we've highlighted, or bugs in general? Anyone want to see how to add heat again? Any questions about that? All right, I'm not hearing anything. We're going to move on. So cataloging discussion today, we're going to talk first about StatCats. This came up at our regional training. Where were we, Kate? Was that Scenic Regional? The last one. So we were at Scenic Regional, and Nancy from Heartland brought this up because in the last update, how you create StatCats, it looks slightly different, and it wasn't working like it should for some reason.
Can you let me share my screen, Liz, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I can't believe it doesn't let you. Do I have to stop share? It doesn't show me a grant. Let me see.
You might have to make me presenter. I don't know. I hate Zoom.
So I was like, usually it's like, not an easy button this time. Let's see. All right, please hold. We're going to push more. Oh. Okay. Hang on.
The last time I did it, like I would hover over the picture, the person's picture, and the three little dots, and then it could make presenter.
Yeah, it's not giving. It says view profile, chat, and pen. It's not letting me.
Zoom.
Con, if anyone knows what I'm talking about. Okay, so I'm going to go through this on my screen. Okay, so let's first talk about what are StatCats. StatCats are basically something that you can apply in the holdings editor to items, and it is something that allows you to count things. So a lot of people use them for, say, grants. If you buy something with a grant, or maybe summer reading, you want to put all these things under the StatCat summer reading and then be able to count later how many times these things are checked out, etc. Okay. There is a difference between that and a book plate, where a book plate doesn't necessarily allow you to count it. Okay. You could, if you know the exact wording of your book plate, that's not meaning you couldn't go in the OPAC and then put in your book plate and then count how many were there. But we mean count as in run a report on it. Okay. So that's what StatCats allow you to do. In order to create a StatCat, what you're going to do is, can you see Evergreen? Just making sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So from your, what I would say your home screen here, and I am in the test box. So under the administration dropdown, you will go to local administration, and you will see here you have statistical categories editor item and statistical categories editor patron. The ones we are talking about are for items. You can obviously create them for patrons. That's, to me, more of a circulation than a cataloging thing, but whatever. So we're going to be talking about this first one. So you just click in there, and this is what it brings up. I was currently playing with Kate's, haha, Kate. I was looking at JCL because as ME, I see everybody's stat cats. Okay. When you go in, you will only see yours for your, your branch or system, whatever. I am Liz, so I see everyone. So I just put it to JCL. So it was way less overwhelming for us to look at. So you will see here, the first thing you will have to do is create an overarching like category. So if you see here, new statistical category editor item, this is meaning the big category that all the other ones will nestle under. So you could, depending on your library, not have any when you go to this screen at all. And that's because you would have to create this new like category for your stat cats. And you would do that here. Now, since at JCL, they already have stat cats, what you would want to do then is go into whichever one you want. So let's say grants. You would go into entries. Kate, interrupt me at any point if I'm messing this up. I don't do this every day. And at this point, this is under that category of grants, and you would press this button here in order to add one. Now, the value is what you would want it to be named. You can see here it's under that, here's that category we're talking about of grants. So, I mean, you could say whatever, test one, since we're in the test server, I could do that basically. And then at that point you name it, and then you can save it, and then it will appear in the category here.
As you guys can see, the inconsistency in things that we have named drives me bonkers, but once you name a stat cat, you cannot ever change it ever again in the history of ever. So
wow, I see, like that's a lot of pressure, honestly. I don't know how I feel about that. So name them correctly the first time because you cannot change that. That makes me nervous about making them. Thank you, Kate. So basically then you would have your multiple different stat cats in your item here, in your little menu here, okay? Now, that is how you make one. Now, after you make one, you can make them and not have anything in there. The next step is really you have to be putting them on the items you have, okay? So in that point, you would go to the item that you want to add it to. I'm just going to retrieve the last bib record. And look at that. It's always the one I use. I always use where the crawdad sings, it knows. So it immediately comes up. So in order to add a stat cat, you do it in the enhanced holdings editor screen. So if you already have a thing here and you have to go back in there, you obviously have to go into edit and give it a second. Here, we're in the holdings editor. And then you want to go into item attributes, which is the big old list of everything. Okay. Now, you would go under StatCat filter, and this is where you would see the StatCats that you made. Now you will notice, because I am Liz, mine has nothing. It either gives me the option of seeing nothing or everything. And if I had everything, it would be literally pages and pages and pages long. So for a normal person, if Kate could have shared her screen, you would see, the maybe whatever, 3 or 4 of how many she had. Okay. You would go under StatCat filter, you would click on it, and you would push apply, and bingo bango, you have applied your stat cat.
Okay. So one of the questions that we got was, why can't we just do a digital book plate? Digital book plates and stat cats are definitely 2 different things. They do 2 different things. Stat cats you can run reports on. So that's kind of the whole thing with them. The stat cat, by the way, stands for statistical category. Statistical because we want to run reports on it. You cannot see that stat cat that you put on it anywhere but if you go, all the way back into the holding. A digital book plate, on the other hand, you cannot run reports on digital book plates, but you can actually see them. Your patrons can see them in the OPAC, like, we on our donated stuff, we'll have donated by friends of the library or whatever, and your patrons can actually see those, and they can search for those in the OPAC as well. You can search by digital book plate. So one is patron, your digital book plate is more for your patron. Stat cats are for the, staff side, so that we can run reports on them.
You will see in the agenda here that I did give like the little cheat of where to go. But also I did link out to the full directions that are written by Equinox that do in fact go with the version of Evergreen we are running, and these do work. Okay. Now, if you, next time you go and you need to set up a stat cat, like everybody, I think, we all gonna run out of this meeting and set up a stat cat? Maybe, okay? And if you have issues, let me know. I'm happy to help, okay? But this is like the quick and dirty of how you make a stat cat category and then put one on an item. And this is gonna be really important, I think, coming up because summer reading is gonna start and you'll wanna count that. It looks good. You want that for the state library. You want that for yourselves to brag about yourselves. So stat cats are really useful. Please use them. Don't be scared of them. But if you go to try to set one up and you have issues, let us know and we will be happy to help you. Okay.
Liz,
Yes.
Karen is ready to talk about reports on StatCats if we could share screens, but
So,
So I have a quick question on that.
mhm,
So I go into StatCat filter and put HEART, right? Heartland.
mhm.
And then I'm set up under grants and I just check my SLP 2025 and apply. And then that's what I need to do, correct?
correct. When you're in the
Okay.
holding
Yes.
screen, yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
all right, thank you.
Now we're gonna hold for a second. Let's see. Because I think this is why we can't share. If I go in, I am logged in as me. If I go in as cataloging, because I thought Kate, I thought you were logged in as cataloging.
I am
No.
not.
So this is where, look, we're all learning. So if I log in as the cataloging committee, I think we can fix this. So let's see.
Yeah, this meeting just starts to whoever is in the room in the first place.
Okay,
So somebody does need to be signed on to the account that,
yes. So let me stop share and leave, and then I will jump back in as cataloging committee. Be right back.
oh my gosh, we are leaderless and rudderless. Oh no. That was fast, Liz.
I pulled it up while I was talking about it. I cheated. Okay, now, firstly, I can share my screen, but can I let Karen share? That is the second question. So, Karen, where are you? There
Heather
you are.
said,
Wait.
I'm here and it's telling me that I cannot, someone else is sharing, the host isn't allowing multiple presenter sharings for this meeting. I don't know if that's helpful information or not.
Heather said, if you click on the share button down there, does it give you options?
I click on the share button. No.
Which
it
I
just-
know as a presenter, you can't always see that bottom
Let me see if I
bar.
click on. Oh, Karen, I just made you a host though. Now can you share?
Ah. I'm going to replace the current share, maybe.
Yes.
Okay.
We should be smarter than this guy.
Let's
That's been
see.
5 years since COVID. We use it so much. Oh, there we go.
Are
Hooray.
you looking at my evergreen
Yes.
reports? Does that, okay,
Mhm.
yay.
So
So
let's go.
I have some like very specific to me and my reporting needs reports that I'm happy to share with anybody. I have these all in my shared reports folder, which is just named K Young. And I have two versions of this because until I saw Kate's reports, I didn't know how anybody else used StatCats, or until I saw Jeffco's StatCats, I didn't know how anybody else was using those. So basically, the way that we're doing it, at least with the few that we're currently using, is we have a StatCat name for the grant or the thing that we're tracking, and then the values that we have entered are just the years related to that thing. So that's just another way to do it. I don't know that there's a right and a wrong way, and I didn't know anybody else's ways when I set ours up. So I have one report that tracks stat cats that have values and one report that tracks stat cats that don't have values. So just that bigger name. This is probably all not super clear unless you are actively using StatCats, but basically the way that I have my reports set up here, if you want to clone any of them, you're very welcome to, is I've got my StatCat name here. got my StatCat value here, and this is basically just a title level report. So if I bought 20 books for a summer reading grant or something like that, I'd see all 20 titles. And as long as I had those StatCat names and values applied, I would see those as well. And then I've got my year-to-date circs in one column, and I've got my total circulations because some of these have been in our collection for over a year, just kind of to satisfy my own curiosity. And I will say, if you're somebody who likes going in and building reports, I used this kind of flow chart, which I'm going to try to drop in the chat if I can figure out how to do that while I'm sharing my screen. This is from Indiana Evergreen, and this is kind of what I use to build that report out for myself. That said, this is one type of reporting that you can do with StatCats. I think it's probably pretty helpful, you know, if you're looking for your total circulations for this grant purchase, then you can just sum that column in your Excel spreadsheet. But all of that said, I know that Heather has another report that basically does counting in a different way, like it's kind of counting the number of items that you have put into one of those statistical categories. So I don't know if she wants to talk a little bit about that version of the report. The bottom line is you can basically, once you have those StatCats applied properly to your items, the way that Kate showed to put those on there, you can run reports in a lot of different ways. It's just whether there's a report that exists already doing what you want it to do. So I know that Heather has another alternative version, if I can throw her
Hey,
under the bus here.
I'm not under the bus. We're on
Say,
we're on
Katie.
top of the bus. Mine is not actually a count of the items in the StatCats, but it is different from Karen's in that I'm going to see if I can share. We'll see.
Oh, look
Okay,
at
is
us
everyone
go.
seeing a million tabs, but also a list of reports?
Yes.
Okay, great. Just ignore the million tabs.
Oh, your tabs stress me out, girl.
I'm so sorry. It's like my tabs are a to-do list. Anyway, it is embarrassing. Mine is intended to be more of an overview. So Karen's report specifically looks at the circulation of things that have a certain StatCat. So mine is intended to be more of an overview. Like, what if we looked at the circulation for an entire month and it also listed StatCat as one of the ways to break out the circulation data? And it's called Count of Circulations in Last Month by Item StatCat Aged and Active Circs V4, because you can't just have a V1. I am going to put that in chat. It is a shared report. So you can feel free to clone it if you think you would find it useful. The output looks like this. And because the report, as I have set it up, counts any items that circulated at a specific location, which means that you could actually see StatCat information from other libraries. So you see a lot of variety over here for name of StatCat and then for the content. I think this report is not perfect because I think if an item has 2 StatCats, I think it gets counted twice. And one of the ways to limit that would be to input a filter to say that you only wish to pull data about a specific StatCat, but that does limit what you'll see on the circulation report. So this is the one that I've made. I think it is not perfect, but it is more of an overview of circulations for StatCats. And of course, if you limited it to your own collection, you would only see StatCats that you actively had in use, which may be more useful for you. Now, if I can figure out how to stop sharing, I'm going to do that.
Those are fantastic reports. Hooray. So guys, they shared a bunch of information. So also this thing from Evergreen, Indiana, I have never seen. So thank you, Karen, for that.
I forgot
So
that
does-
existed until Heather reminded me that it existed when I was asking about that kind of information. That I'm like, oh yeah, that's the thing I used to make that report. So, you know.
That's really helpful. Like, this is one of the great things about being an Evergreen and being open source is like, you know, so many people use it, but they also share all their goodies and information and cheat sheets, and hooray, guys. So statistical categories, helpful, use them. If you have questions about it, obviously there's several people in the consortium that can help you out, not just myself or Kate. Obviously people from MLC are really familiar with using them too. A lot of people use StatCats now. So does anybody have any specific questions about StatCats?
Just a reminder, Liz said, you know, people use these a lot for grants or whatnot. When you get a grant, at the end of that grant term, you have to have statistics to, you know, back up that and justify your use of that money. So that is most often what stat cats are used for. You as a cataloger might not be running these reports, and you might. However, when you're cataloging and you have these items that come across your desk, you're going to need to know that it is imperative that you put them in the stat cat if they are part of the collection that you want to be counted.
Yes. So not only do you have to make the stat cats, you have to remember to apply them to your items as you are adding your items. Otherwise, you're counting nothing. So it's really a multi-step process in order to use these correctly and get the information at the end of, say, like the grant period when you need to report on it. So it's slightly more complicated than some things that are just maybe one step. Okay. All right,
Quick
we're going to move
question.
along.
Quick
Mhm.
question.
Yep.
So I've added most of my grant book titles already. And if I just go
Mhm.
back and add that, then they'll go back to the date I put them in, like February.
No,
The
I think it
stat?
will, no, it'll only like from the point you added the stat cat on because it didn't know it was part of the stat cat before that point. So it can't count the things before that.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
I heard the sad face in your voice, Nancy. I'm sorry.
Very sad.
Yeah. Now that's not to say you couldn't go
Yeah,
count those
there's
items
other
in a
ways you
different
could
way.
get that. Not
Yeah.
as easy, but
Yeah. And then
Okay,
add them in, but it can happen. You can still retroactively get that information. It just is not going to be as easy as if you had the stat cat created to begin with.
okay. Thanks.
I still hear you being sad. I'm sorry, Nancy. Okay. Do we have any more questions about stat cats? I've said that word enough times now where it has lost all meaning. So we are going to go on and talk about the 040. This was something that came up in the cat help about missing 040s. So in an ideal world, which we all know we don't live in that, in an ideal world, when you bring in a record, it will already have the 040. Someone mentioned that, was it Maine Cat that does not have 040s in their records? I don't know what they're doing, whoever this group was, but when you are bringing a record in, you should be checking and making sure there's an 040. The ultimate responsibility for there being an 040 is the person who is bringing in, creating the record in the first place. Okay. So that being said, there are going to be records in our catalog that do not have 040s because honestly, I just assume they're there. I'm not necessarily like, I'm hoping I'm catching them, but there's so many things, guys. It happens. But if you are then coming across a record later and noticing it does not have an 040, you should at least be adding parts of it. Now, could you go and find out the person who is responsible for the A and the C in the 040? It's the person who transcribed it and uploaded it. Yes. Do we expect you to do that when you are not the one who brought this record in? No. So if you are coming across a record that is missing an 040, you're not the library that brought it in, and you have to add the 040. I would say you need to at least be adding your B, which is the language, right? Okay, so generally, not all the time, but generally English, unless you're doing foreign language stuff, right? Then you are going to be adding the E because we catalog an RDA. And then you will be adding the D field. So that is where you put your OCLC symbol that I edited this, okay? So I'm going to, if it lets me, there we go. So I will show you what I would say that looks like. So I would say English, and I would say RDA. So if I came across a record that did not have an 040 and I had to edit that record, I'm going to add this chunk in right here. Now, if you're creating a record and doing it yourself or bringing it in, there should be other fields, right? But we're kind of, we're skirting the rules a little bit to make this easier on everyone. So records do technically require an 040. So if you are noticing they are not there, you do need to be adding that bit. Now, the second part that was brought up is sometimes we're finding records with two 040s. And how does this happen? Well, in the perfect world again, mark tags would go in numerical order. They do not. That would make sense. They don't always. So the 040, if all of them were in numerical order, we could obviously see really easily two or 040s right next to each other. We could get rid of one because there should only be one 040. Okay. If you are noticing two 040s, you just kind of have to use catalogger's judgment and take the one out that you don't think is the most correct. Or maybe they're duplicated and just take one out. But there should only be one 040 in a BIP record. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay. Now, this isn't something where like, wherein some mark fields are incredibly important and like say, like you're not checking your 650 subject headings and where somebody's going to get yelled at. Nobody really ever gets yelled at, but we're going to have to talk to somebody. This is best practices. This is what should be happening, but no one's going to come and yell at you if you forget an 040. It happens. I'm sure I have forgotten to add an 040, but if you were noticing it is missing one, please insert one into the record because it just creates better bib records. Okay. Awesome. All right. We are going to move right along to a second question that came up in, I don't know if it was Cat Help or directly to me. I don't remember. I just remember answering it, but we were talking about maps. And this is a sticky widget. Maps, I hate them. I hate them, guys. They're so terrible. They have specialized rules and what is a map and what is not a map. So in MEC, we kind of go best practices and we bend the rules slightly in the case of what is a map. Because for our icons in MEC, when something has a map, it shows a globe, and patrons don't understand necessarily that that is what an atlas would necessarily be. So when we are cataloging maps in MEC, we prefer that we make them a book that have maps in them. Does that make sense? And this has to do with the type, right? When you're cataloging a book, your type is A. So let's, yeah, we're talking about here. It's an A if it's a book. If it's what is considered cartographic materials, it is either an E or an F. Generally an E. E mean it's a published map where, you know, like it was put out by a company, whatever, multiple people have this map. Whereas F would mean you can catalog like hand-drawn maps or whatever that were not commercially available. That's when you use F. You use F very, very rarely, okay? But for atlases at MEC, we prefer them to be type A for books and then added like a book with maps that are inserted. The other way would be if you have a flat map. So does anyone have those map drawers where you pull them out and there's just like leaves of maps in them? That is what I would catalog as a map and give it the type E. But you should know that if you are cataloging flat maps like that, they have very special rules and require even certain weird things in which to measure them with. They're complicated, they're hard. It's a specialized category. So if you need to catalog those, we can talk about it. I can make you make a crib sheet, but they're difficult. That is why in MEC, we prefer that atlases are technically A. Now, in the greater cataloging community, if you go out to, you know, big universities, wherever, anywhere else, and say, you know, cataloging atlases is A, people will tell you you are technically incorrect. Okay, because this is one of those cataloging rules that we say best practices for MEC, and we bend it slightly so it makes more sense to patrons. Now, does this mean I think you should go in and change all your atlases that are E to A? You don't have to. We're hoping over time these will flush themselves out. If you have a huge map collection and want to make changes, you know, we can talk about that. Contact me, we'll discuss. But in general, when bringing in an atlas, or making an atlas record, prefer to use type A for book containing maps. That was very esoteric. This gets into like cataloging philosophy, basically. So does anyone have questions on that? Are we all just like glazed over at this point? Because I kind of am when I talk about maps.
I have, just talking about my library, we have a lot of genealogical maps. We have flat maps or, rolled up maps or, and you know what? They're hard to catalog and they're not perfect. And a lot of them, I guess what I'm saying is you come across maps that are currently already in Missouri Evergreen. Who knows who cataloged them? I mean, a lot of ours were cataloged 15 years ago, and it's like you look at them now and you're like, oh my gosh, who did that? The main thing we want is for our patrons is discoverability. We want our patrons to be able to search something and find it. But yeah, maps can be real complicated. But thank goodness that it's much easier if we just do an atlas as a book. Someone has a question about folders maps, like the fold out maps that come in the book itself, or like.
Are they bound into a book, as in like a road maps, or what kind of maps are we talking about?
Also, while she's typing the answer out, Karen says that the report that she showed us earlier in regards to Nancy's question about an old stack or a new stat cat applying to old circs.
Oh.
The one that she showed us, she's right. It did have past circs and current circs, year to date circs.
So that's one way to catch it. You just have to set up your report to report on those things.
So the fold out maps, they come in the books.
Okay, so a fold out map that comes in the book, in that case, in the 300 field, you would just put plus E, and E is for basically anything basically stuck in the back of the book, let's say. One fold out map. Technically, then in parentheses, you're supposed to measure that fold out map. Now, if you don't do that, I don't think anyone's going to be upset about it. It's folded up. It fits in the back of the book. Okay, we're cutting corners, guys. It is what it is. But in that case, the book is what the main thing is, and that is an added map. So in the 300, you would account for that added map with the E field. Now I have added in the agenda here, you will see a lot of the times when you do an atlas in the 300 field, it will say one atlas, and then like it'll say the page number. So let's say, I'll make it up, pages, and then it'll have the B with maps. Okay, so if you do it like this, we're counting that as correct. If you do it with just 230 pages and say it has maps, I'm saying that's correct. Either way is correct. Is one technically pinkies up correct? Yes. One atlas with the stuff in parentheses is pinkies up correct. But as long as we are accounting for what is in the book, I'm not going to be mad at it. And Kate is right. Maps are difficult. I had to catalog tons and tons of maps when I worked at SEMO, and I had to go to a 3-day long training in which to learn to catalog maps. It is one of the most specialized things, and I will have like flashbacks about cataloging maps. They're difficult. So if you have to catalog a bunch of them and you need help, please reach out and let us help you, and we will figure it out. Okay. Don't struggle. They're very hard. That being said, also, if somebody in Missouri Evergreen knows really well how to catalog maps, please let us know so we can ask you questions. We're going to exploit you. No, really not. Okay, so we've talked about O4Os, we've talked about stat cats, we've talked about maps. Do we have questions on any of these things that we have talked about today in cataloging discussion? I feel like this time it got very nitpicky and into the dirtiness of Evergreen in the back end, but we've talked about all sorts of things. Anybody have any questions? Okay. All right. barring we have no questions, we are going to say that we're going to go ahead and end the meeting. Now, if you have not put your name and library in the chat, please do. Otherwise, I don't know how to count you for attendance. So please do that. And our next meeting will be June 9th. Same Zoom channel, same Zoom time. Hopefully we will remember to log in as a cataloging committee and not have to do this again with this switching around. But okay, everybody have a good day, a good week. And if you have questions, you know where to find us in Cat Help or in my email.
Thanks, Liz. Thanks, everybody.
Liz.